The word monitoring is really kind of a no-no in a lot of places, but the reality is I can't think of a better word to talk about. I'm going to talk mostly today about trends in post-employment. I'm going to spend about the first 15 minutes or so talking about trends in general, and then I'm going to talk specifically about the new product that we have, which is Arrest Direct, which is a real-time criminal history tracking solution that we've just finished a pilot for, and release 1 actually comes out this afternoon, or this evening. So I'm going to talk to you about that. That'll take about the last 20 minutes or so, and then I'll open it up for brief questions, and then we'll move on. I don't like the word social media. I absolutely cannot stand that word because I think that talks about just making friends. The reality is it's much bigger than that. We're connected in a way that we've never been connected before. And so the question is, can that connectivity make us better employers? I think the answer is yes. But like all technologies, we actually learn the social science of the technology later than we learn the technical science. And so it's going to take a while for us to figure out exactly how to use this data. But we think there are some areas where we can use it today. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the trends that go on in post-hire risk management. Again, you could also call it employee monitoring. First of all, and probably foremost, is the search for relevance. My friend and colleague, Dr. Steve Minton, is going to talk about this a little bit later. He and I are working together on a National Science Foundation grant to try to understand the relevance question a little bit more. But the relevance question is absolutely critical. And it's critical for two reasons. First of all, think about how much data is out there. You know, we've all seen those slides. I almost ran that slide over again, but we've seen it so many times. It's something like the number of people who are involved in Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, has quadrupled like every year for the last several years, and there are literally billions of people who are involved today, whereas almost none were a decade ago. In the midst of all that information, how do you find what's relevant? And relevance is critical to our jobs because from a legal perspective, as we talked about earlier, you probably shouldn't use data that has nothing to do with the job. And so the search for relevance is a critical item that's going on today in people working in the ability to mine data from this seamless, limitless world of online public information. How do you mine that information? Getting it is one thing, but getting what you want and need is another thing. The other thing that's growing a lot in this space is tracking both positive and negative. So a lot of people think about the negative, but the positive is out there too. So let me use this example. I know today a company that's exploring the idea. You know, one of the biggest problems we have with post-employment career development is we keep trying to tell our employees to let us know when they finish a certification. They went to school, they gave a speech, they did something unique or special, but they forgot to tell us. And that would be great information to know because as we try to put people from one job to another job or we do a search of our database on skills and capabilities, we lose that stuff. We encourage our people to keep up our database, but they don't. So this company is exploring the fact that how many people are likely to put in their professional network more likely to jump into LinkedIn and say, I just finished my PHR, but forget to jump into their HR system and say, I'm now a PHR. And so they're starting to explore that. Can I mine that data? Because now it's a natural act. Logging into your system's an unnatural act, but because the online media world is becoming something I do, it might be more accurate and more up-to-date than some of the stuff you put in your regular world. So people are looking at that. That's a positive reason for that. I thought I'd give you just a little bit of an idea of some of the things that are possible out there today. Credentials. Almost all credentialing is done by a credentialing agency or maintained by. For instance, if you want to get certified as a certified network engineer and get that credential, most of that information is online now today. You can get at that information very quickly, and it's generally available in your electronic footprint. Education, you can verify where somebody went to school. Almost better online. By the way, I wish I could remember this exact reference, but I think it was Pew in the Internet, and maybe some of you maybe remember this, but there was a study done that showed that people are far less likely to lie in their public profile than they are in a private resume. And the reason is because if I said I went to Harvard University and I didn't, the likelihood of somebody dissing me on the internet is a lot higher than the one person who checks my resume and probably, as you guys know, you're rolling a good set of dice there. You get rich in Vegas with these odds. How many people are going to really check that Harvard University? Unfortunately, not everybody does. And so people are far less likely to lie in a public environment than they are in a private environment. So you can actually verify education. You can verify professional. You know, I call it professional trajectory because you can see what you've done. If you go out there and Google me, you will see every single job I've had. You will see my job profile. And you know what? You'll see it a lot faster than having somebody at a call center call up 7 different people 21 times to get this piece of data, right? And so it's something that you can start thinking about. Same thing with licensing. Same thing about certifications. Hobbies. Maybe hobbies are relevant. Maybe your skills. You talk about your skill set and what you've done and how you've learned. You can also explore your influence network. If you look up somebody like Steve Minton, he's got a huge influence network. You'll find out that he's very influential in the environment that he works in. People quote him a lot, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're hiring somebody that is a professional and you need them to have professional integrity and professional impact, you can find that out in their electronic footprint. I had a really interesting conversation the other day. Now, this is really a fascinating thing to me. I don't know whether this sounds odd to you or not to me. I almost didn't take the call. I get a call and they leave a message because I try not to interrupt myself by telephones too often. They leave a message, and this person introduced themselves as, "Hello, I'm Mary Ann Smith." Can't remember the exact name. It wasn't quite that obvious, but it was like Mary Ann something or other, right? And she says, "I'm with Pizza Today, and I'd like to interview you about social media." So I'm thinking, Pizza Today, what's this all about? So Pizza Today decided that they wanted to talk to me because it's a trade magazine for independent pizza parlors. So they have thousands of them all over the country, independent pizza parlors. And she wanted to talk about this. And one of the things that she challenged me on is she said, but wait a minute, when you go into the internet, fortunately she had an HR background, when you go into the internet and you look at information, that information is so available, how do you avoid seeing the stuff that you're smart enough not to ask in an interview? So if you're doing professional references or you're doing personal references, you know you shouldn't ask this person, well, do you kind of know how old they are? Or do you know if they, party a lot at night? Things that you know you're not supposed to ask, right? But as soon as you pop that in front of you in the social media world, it's right there in front of you. How can you claim you didn't see their age? How can you claim you didn't see their race when there's a picture right there? How can you claim, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And so you've got to establish a strategy that allows either third-party review, maybe use a company like Sterling. It's not a commercial, but the point is that it's not just us. There's others beginning to do it. And you can establish a program that allows you to see what you should and applies stuff that's job relevant and allows people to have a personal life. And that's really that last part. I've always enjoyed this cartoon a little bit, and for those of you who can't see it, it says, although it's impressive that you currently hold 38 mayorships in Foursquare, that doesn't really count as a job qualification.